Valerie, a motivational speaker, is speaking to the audience about their true potential. On the other hand, she is seen drowning in the water. After the speech, the crowd thanked her with applause. Sinking to the other side, she scratches her head. After that, she intimates with her husband Robbie, who also manages her company. Robbie gives her a letter and asks who's it, and she says it's her father calling her to attend her mother's death anniversary. Her mother is dead and she doesn't speak with her father for some reason. Ruby says you should go there and this will give you a break from work. Valerie refuses to go and says I have to prepare for my tour. Scratching her head, she throws the letter in the basket. While exercising in the pool, she sees her mother and father and scratches her head. She sees blood in the water and panics and gets out of the pool. After that, her friend Crystal comes to meet her. She tells her that the Chinese embassy is asking for your birth certificate to approve your visa. Valerie says she's not a terrorist and Crystal tells her that Tony's tour was cancelled for not doing so. She gets upset and starts scratching her head after hearing this, and Crystal encourages her. Crystal tells her my team will solve this issue or otherwise we will keep Asia pending for some days. Valerie says the tour will be as planned and leaves. She scratches her head to find her birth certificate and her motivational speech is playing in the background. After which she applies medicine on her head and goes to sleep, but she does not get rid of the itch. She sits in the bathtub and searches for an itch infection, and after seeing the terrible results, she closes the laptop. Then she sits with Robbie and watches the advertising video of her upcoming tour. She doesn't like the clip much and asks Robbie to shoot some new clips. Robbie agrees but tells her that they don't have enough time, but she asks him to do and leaves. While doing meditation, she reflects on her speech that we can fight through any situation no matter how difficult. She gets so lost in her thoughts that many hands start rubbing her body. Seeing the monster's hand grabbing her, she opens her eyes only to see a worm crawling on her thigh. Then she saw a lot of worms on the ground and found a wormhole inside the wall, which shocked her. She calls her Auntie Twee and reaches her saloon. Twee has done her nails and Valerie asks her about some old boxes. She tells her it's in storage. Valerie goes to check the storage and finds her parents' photo. Suddenly, the light turns off and in panic, Valerie sees a temple with her family photos and worms crawling on it. Twee appears and she tells her that one of the boxes is missing. Twee tells her your father took it and gives her mother's photo. Valerie then saw herself on the boat with her mother. After returning home, she swims and then uses the medicine and goes to the bedroom. Robbie talks to get her pregnant but she doesn't take it seriously and asks him to sleep. Robbie sees her feeling itchy again but she tells him it's nothing. After that, she feels a lot of itch while trimming her nails. She picks up an instrument and scratches her head, which gives her relief but injures her head. Now she bandages her head and wears a cap and calls the doctor to explain her situation, who asks her to get an urgent checkup. She asks the doctor for some stronger medicine, but the doctor says that this chronic disease can cause a lot of problems, so you have to come to the clinic, but she hangs up. She takes out her father's letter and reads it. She visions her mother drowning and leaves to see her father. On reaching there, she sees her father worshipping with some people who see her and ask her to wait. After that, her father asks about Robbie and then leads her to pray. Then the duo talks about their past, which reveals that Valerie is angry with her father for some reason. She asks him about the box and her father says he thought she came to honor her mother. Valerie says I don't have time for arguments and I came here for the boxes. She then notices a creature's sketch on the wall and asks his father about it. He tells her that it's a hungry ghost that can take control of a human host and grow stronger when the host becomes weaker. Valerie starts to feel dizzy and when her father goes to bring water for her, she picks up the keys of his storage and leaves. Scratching her head, she reaches the storage location. She removes her bandage to see that she has a wound on her head. A fan of her appears and takes a selfie with her. Then she goes inside the storage and finds the box but fears hearing the creepy noise. She follows the noise to see and the lights start to turn off. As she reaches the following area, she finds no one but only a guard who asks her to leave. On reaching home, she closes the hole in the wall where she kills a worm. She then starts to paint a portrait and a box falls. She checks the box to find her parents' photos and notices the same itches on her mother's arms. After that, Robbie tells her that if you were going to meet your father, you would have told me and I would have gone with you. Valerie says it just happened out of the blue but I just went there to get some belongings of my mother as I have no interest in this man. Robbie says he is your father but she says this man killed my mother before my eyes. He says that it is neither your fault nor your father's fault, it might be an accident, on which Valerie gets angry. She puts soft gloves on her hands, taps them, and falls asleep. As the night deepens, a worm crawls on her body and goes inside her nose. The worm gets inside her head and she wakes up in panic and falls on the ground. She doesn't understand what's happening and vomits a swarm of worms. She awakens only to see it's a bad dream, but her fingers are covered in blood as her wound begins to grow. She orders a massage chair and searches for the demon's pursuit. Her father calls her but she doesn't answer. He starts praying to Sanchi, the ghost, and his nose starts to bleed. Valerie reaches Auntie Thai's saloon and gives her the chair. She also gives her tour tickets and asks her to come along with her. Valerie shows her mother's itchy pictures and asks Twee about it. Twee tells her that your mother was a good woman, but after the war, something bad happened to her. Her whole body was covered with wounds, which looked like she was possessed by a demon. Valerie asks about his father and Twee suggests she has to stay away from him. With no idea what's going on with her, and her situation is getting worse, she manages to calm herself. She goes to the photo shoot where she finds herself with a demon and screams. Returning home, she hears Robbie and Crystal talking about delaying the tour. At night, Robbie asks her to talk but she turns romantically bad. During the sex, she pinches her nails in his body and Robbie asks her to stop. She wounds his back but apologizes and starts to give him a B job. When Robbie touches her head, his hand gets bloody from her head's wound. She tells Robbie that I have spoken to the doctor and it is not a big deal. Robbie gets angry and wants to see her wound but she pushes him away. Robbie goes to sleep on the couch while she reacts absurdly. She makes a tool to tie her hands to take control of her itch. She fixes the tool above her bed, ties her hands, and goes to sleep. Moments later, a demon attacks her but she gains consciousness and hears Robbie asking her to open the door. She unlocks herself but when she opens the door the demon pushes her back. The demon is playing with her consciousness and the situation is getting out of control. She then calls out Robbie only to find that he left the house. Worried and feared, Valerie has no other choice except to call her father. As his father arrives, she tells him about the situation but he again says something that leads her to see her mother's visions. She calls her father Junkie and he takes out the money from her bag and leaves. She rushes to the storage and finds her mother's file case only to see her horrific visions with worms coming out of her mother's dead body. She returns home with the file case and sees the demon's sketch. She calls Robbie but he doesn't listen to her and suddenly something falls. She sees her mother drowning outside the window and her father strangling her mother. Then she confronts her father, who admits to summoning the Sanchi during the Vietnam War, inadvertently passing it to Kai. He reveals that Kai attempted to drown Val as a child to prevent the Sanchi's spread, forcing Sang to kill her mother to save their daughter. As Val's compulsion worsens, she tries to control it but nothing happens. She goes to host the show but when speaking to the audience, Valerie gets out of control. She sees the demon attacking her and runs out from there. At home, Robbie discovers that she has secretly been taking birth control pills despite their plans to conceive, which causes a rift between them. She scratches an open wound into her scalp and puts her finger inside it to stop the itch. Her father also dies and she is hospitalized. Val's condition deteriorates, culminating in a breakdown during a speaking engagement. Doctors discover she has scratched a hole into her skull, leading to hallucinations. Robbie brings her home to recover, but Val remains convinced of the Sanchi's presence. After getting fit, Val attempts to exorcise the Sanchi by inflicting harm upon herself, believing it will draw out the entity. She battles a monstrous manifestation of the Sanchi and ultimately drags it into a swimming pool, attempting to drown it, as Sang once tried. Robbie rescues Val, and she emerges holding a diminished, fetal-like version of the Sanchi, symbolizing her confrontation with her inner demons. The film concludes with Val revealing her pregnancy to Robbie. However, a subtle hint, a bug crawling near the sonogram, suggests that the Sanchi's influence may still persist, leaving the ending ambiguous. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.